You walk into a room you have never been in before, and then it hits you. A wave of certainty, total and absolute, that you have stood in this exact spot, seen this exact light, heard this exact conversation. You know it is impossible, but your brain insists it already happened. That feeling has a name: déjà vu, French for already seen. And for most of human history, people had no idea what it was. Some called it a memory of a past life. Some called it a glimpse of the future. Some called it proof that reality itself was glitching. But the real answer is far stranger than any of those. Because déjà vu is not a glitch at all, it is your brain catching itself in the act of making a mistake. And the fact that you can feel it happening reveals something remarkable about how your mind actually works. Let's start with the basics. Roughly 2 out of every 3 people report experiencing déjà vu at some point in their lives. It usually lasts a few seconds. It happens more when you are young, more when you are tired, more when you are stressed. And then, around your mid-20s, it slowly starts to fade. By the time you are 60, you may barely experience it at all. The term itself was coined in 1876 by a French philosopher named Émile Boirac. He described the feeling in a letter, gave it a name, and accidentally launched a scientific mystery that would take more than a century to crack. Because here is the problem with studying déjà vu. You cannot schedule it, it arrives without warning, lasts seconds, and leaves no trace. For decades, scientists could only collect stories. They could not catch it in the act. The first real breakthrough came from an unexpected place: an operating room. In the 1950s, a neurosurgeon named Wilder Penfield was performing brain surgery on patients who were awake. He needed them conscious so he could map their brains and avoid damaging critical areas. As he touched a mild electrical probe to different spots, patients reported tastes, sounds, flashes of memory. But when he stimulated a region called the temporal lobe, just behind your ears, something eerie happened. Some patients suddenly reported intense feelings of familiarity, the sense that this exact moment had happened before. Penfield had done something nobody thought possible. He had created déjà vu on demand. Deep in the temporal lobe sits a structure called the rhinal cortex. Its job is surprisingly specific. It does not store your memories. It does not retrieve them. It does one thing. It generates the feeling of familiarity. The warm little signal that says, "You have seen this before." And right next to it sits the hippocampus, the structure that actually retrieves the memory itself. The details, the where, the when. Normally, these two systems fire together. You see your friend's face, the rhinal cortex says familiar, and the hippocampus instantly supplies the rest. That is, Sarah from work, you had lunch on Tuesday. But what happens if one system fires and the other stays silent? What happens if your brain shouts familiar and then retrieves absolutely nothing? That is déjà vu, a familiarity signal with no memory attached. Your brain checks its files, finds nothing, and you are left standing there with a feeling of recognition that points at empty air. The moment feels remembered, because the remembering machinery genuinely activated. It just activated by mistake. But that raises a deeper question. Why would it misfire in the first place? A cognitive psychologist named Anne Cleary at Colorado State University spent years chasing the answer, and her solution was brilliant. Cleary used virtual reality to create pairs of scenes that were secretly identical in layout. A virtual garden, for example, with hedges and pathways arranged in a precise pattern. Then later, a junkyard, with piles of scrap arranged in exactly the same spatial pattern. Same skeleton, different skin. Participants explored the garden. Later, they walked into the junkyard, and many of them were hit with a sudden, uncanny wave of déjà vu. They had never seen this junkyard, but their brain had seen its shape. The familiarity was real. The memory it pointed to was simply hidden, dressed up in different details, filed away where conscious recall could not reach it. This is called the Gestalt familiarity hypothesis. Your brain does not just remember things. It remembers arrangements, layouts, configurations. The way a doorway sits relative to a window, the angle of a street corner, and when a brand new place accidentally matches the hidden geometry of an old one, Your familiarity system lights up like a smoke alarm, even though there is no fire it can point to. Think about what that means for your daily life. You have walked through thousands of rooms, thousands of streets, watched thousands of scenes in films and dreams. Your head is full of half-forgotten layouts. Sooner or later, a new place will rhyme with an old one. And when it does, you will feel the echo without ever finding the source. But Cleary's work uncovered something even more unsettling. During déjà vu, many of her participants reported a second feeling layered on top of the first. The feeling that they knew what was about to happen next. You have probably felt this. The moment feels so familiar that you sense the next few seconds coming, like a song you have heard before. Cleary tested it. During induced déjà vu, she asked participants to predict what came next in the scene. They felt strongly that they could. They could not. Their predictions were no better than random chance. The feeling of knowing the future was completely false, an illusion stacked on top of an illusion. Your brain says this is familiar, then doubles down and says, and therefore I know what comes next. So your brain misfires, lies about it, then lies again. That sounds like a flaw, a bug in the system. Here's the twist. It might be the opposite. A neuroscientist named Akira O'Connor at the University of St. Andrews managed to trigger déjà vu like states in people inside a brain scanner. And when he looked at which regions lit up, he expected to see the memory centers glowing. The hippocampus, the temporal lobe. They were quiet. Instead, the activity spiked in the frontal regions of the brain, the areas responsible for monitoring conflict, error checking, the brain's quality control department. Let that sink in. Déjà vu does not light up the part of your brain that remembers. It lights up the part of your brain that catches mistakes, which flips the entire story. Déjà vu is not the error. Déjà vu is the error message. The familiarity signal misfires silently, and a fraction of a second later, your frontal cortex notices the contradiction. This feels remembered, but there is no memory here. That clash, that friction between two systems disagreeing, is the strange electric feeling you experience. You are literally feeling your brain fact-check itself in real time. And now that strange pattern from earlier finally makes sense. Why does déjà vu peak in young people and fade with age? You might assume a malfunction would get worse as the brain gets older. But if déjà vu is your error detection system catching glitches, then less déjà vu does not mean fewer glitches. It may mean fewer glitches getting caught. The young brain is a vigilant editor, flagging every inconsistency. The older brain lets more familiarity signals slide through unquestioned. The psychologist Alan Brown, who spent decades reviewing every déjà vu study ever conducted, found the experience is overwhelmingly reported by healthy, rested, ordinary minds, and most often triggered by physical scenes and places. It is not a symptom of something breaking. It is a feature of a system working hard. There is a darker mirror to all this, and it proves the point. A researcher named Chris Moulin encountered patients with a rare condition sometimes called chronic déjà vu. For them, the familiarity signal is not misfiring occasionally. It is stuck on permanently. Every moment of their lives feels like a rerun. One patient refused to watch the news because he was certain he had seen every broadcast before. Another stopped going to the doctor, convinced the appointment had already happened. And here's the chilling part. Many of these patients do not feel the déjà vu sensation at all. They simply believe they're false memories. Their familiarity signal fires, their error checker fails to catch it, and the lie sails straight through into reality. That is what your life would be without that strange little jolt you get a few times a year. The jolt is the defense. So the next time it happens to you, pay attention to what you are actually feeling. The world suddenly seems pre-recorded. Time folds over on itself. Your gut screams that this moment already existed. And a quieter voice, somewhere behind your eyes, calmly answers, "No, it did not." Trust the quiet voice. That is your brain's proofreader, catching a typo in your experience before it becomes a false belief. Out of every species on this planet, as far as we can tell, you belong to one of the very few whose brain does not just remember, but watches itself remember and interrupts when something does not add up. Déjà vu is a few seconds of feeling your own mind disagree with itself. Most machines fail silently. Yours raises its hand. So yes, you will walk into a room someday soon, and it will hit you. A wave of certainty that you have stood in that exact spot before. You have not. But now you know what that feeling really is. Not a past life, not a glimpse of the future, not a glitch in reality. It is your brain catching a lie in the act of being told and letting you watch. You have never been in that room before, and the fact that you can know that despite everything your memory is screaming is one of the strangest gifts evolution ever gave you.